9. 2 Samuel chapter 9. Just to recap a little bit, last week we was finding God and his promises. We know that God is faithful in his word, amen. And what God has promised, God will deliver from generation to generation. We don't have to worry about that. He is good, and he's good in nature, and his divine nature of who he is and what he will continue to be is the greatest thing for mankind. And we are thankful for that. Okay, in 2 Samuel chapter 9, can we have someone read the whole entire chapter, please? 2 Samuel chapter 9.
And David said, "Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" And there was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, "Art thou Ziba?" And he said, "Thy servant is he." And the king said, "Is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show this kindness of God unto him?" And Ziba said unto the king, "Jonathan hath yet a son which is lame on his feet." And the king said unto him, "Where is he?" And Ziba said unto the king, "Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, in Lodebar." Then King David sent and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, from Lodebar. And when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was come unto David, he fell on his face and did reverence. And David said, "Mephibosheth," and he answered, "Behold, thy servant." And David said unto him, "Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually." And he bowed himself and said, "What is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am?" Then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, "I have given unto thy master's son all that pertains to Saul and to all his house. Thou therefore and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring him the fruits, that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, thy master's son, shall eat bread always at my table." Then Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then said Ziba unto the king, "According to all that my lord the king hath commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. As for Mephibosheth," said the king, "he shall eat at my table as one of the king's sons." And Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Michael, and all that dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants unto Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, that name, dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table and was lame on both his feet.
What are some qualities we see about David thus far, since we've been studying this book and this subject? What are some of the things we see about the nature of who David was?
Kind-hearted?
As king. Honorable?
Yeah.
Fearful God.
Humble. Just humble.
Turn to, take your smartphones out and look up Mephibosheth, but www.allaboutgod.com, and Mephibosheth will come up. And it'll tell us a great deal about this person. You go back to chapter 4 of 2 Samuel, and we can read this together. allaboutgod.com, and just look up Mephibosheth. Okay. Look up Bible Mephibosheth, and you'll find it. I find a very good thing on him under allaboutgod.com. And this will help us tie into this relationship that David had with Jonathan and the very nature of who David was and how he brought this kingdom together. Mephibosheth was the son of Jonathan, the grandson of Israel's king Saul. The boy was only 5 years old when his father and grandfather was killed in battle with the Philistines at Mount Gilboa by the Jezreel Valley. Learning of the death of his sons in battle, Saul took his own life. It was customary that when a ruler was defeated, that his family would be killed as well, so that there would be no lineage of that ruler left to reclaim the throne. However, we find in 2 Samuel chapter 4 that Mephibosheth survived. Jonathan's son of Saul had a son who was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came to Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she hurried to leave, he fell and became crippled. His name was Mephibosheth, 2 Samuel 4:4. What became of him? Mephibosheth had grown and had a son of his own when King David inquired of his whereabouts. King David and Jonathan had been very close friends and became as brothers. Because of their relationship and an oath David made to Jonathan, 1 Samuel 20:15 through 16:42, he wanted to honor it by finding and caring for Mephibosheth. One of Saul's servants was questioned and told King David of the young man's location. Mephibosheth was summoned to appear before the king, though afraid, came out not knowing if he would be killed or what might happen to him. He was a cripple, had lost his heritage, and lived in a desolate place called Lodebar. Translated, namely, literally means land of nothing. Mephibosheth had been reduced to nothing. So we get back to 2 Samuel chapter 9, and we see that David, in his act of kindness and the very nature of who David was, kind-hearted, honorable, humble, loving, fearing God, he sought to bring the kingdom together and to do things that will draw Israel back to loving God as a nation, not as individual tribes. And as king, I mean, you do the things that you do and you serve by example, and trying to do righteous things as a king with problems himself, he was able to at least get people's attention to do certain things. So several years ago, a movie was released called Pay It Forward. It was a movie about a young boy who has a class project, came up with the idea of showing random acts of kindness. I didn't see this movie. It is a true feel-good movie that inspired many people toward kind acts. It appears there may need to be a part 2 of that movie because we live in a society that is becoming comfortable in being unkind. Watch reality TV for a couple of hours or just read some of your friends' Facebook pages, and you will see how unkind we have become, many times without even realizing it. Kindness is a noun that is shown through our action. Kind actions are just the expected ones either. Buying someone a wedding gift, for instance, is not as much an act of kindness as it is as expected tradition. True kindness is not shown out of a necessity or obligation, yet at the same time, true kindness is anything but random. David's kindness to Mephibosheth was not expected, but it wasn't random either. It was based on the kindness of David had received from God. So when you come in as king, kind of like what we do when we change presidents and prime ministers and kingships, we bring in our own people. I mean, it's just natural for you to bring people that you're going to get along with, folks that's going to revere you as boss. You're not going to, it's tough enough to be in leadership. So you might as well get some folks who you think going to do a good job and who's going to work with you. So as a Democratic Party, you will come in and you will try your very best, depending on the nature of what is going on in certain aspects of running government. You'll fire everybody or just fire some people, but somebody gonna get fired. Okay. Then you'll get your own folks in, whatever list there is for filling this employment list. You try to do that in the first 60 days of your presidency, and then it should be smooth sailing. If you're a Republican, you'll come in and you do the same thing. These parties have different ideologies. Therefore, they don't want to have people standing in their way. It's bad enough they got to sit there and fight Congress, depending on what the majority votes are coming from the majority party. You got to fight these people on the issues. And then you start doing basic stuff to get things done. David had a big job ahead of him. This nation was a crazy nation of stiff-necked people who constantly wanted to do what they wanted to do. And it was ugly most of the time. Most of the time with Israel just didn't pay attention to God. And they got into trouble time and time again. And a lot of these folks just went on their own merry way and did their own thing. Those tribes were so divided, you don't even know how they ever became brothers in the first place. But they was like that as siblings. So being a nation, they were divided, and God had to somehow bring them back together. So he chose the right man to do that. And David starts showing the act of kindness to, first of all, remember the vow that he couldn't break before God. Remember the vow that he made to his best friend. And to find someone and to take care of someone was pretty big for a king to do on this scale. Saul didn't like David, and everybody knew that. So David got a lot of points for this. And for someone to take someone in this condition, it had to sound out to the hillside that this was a king that was worth following. So just look at yourself and look at some of the qualities that you have. And if we have to put your name up here, will we put these things about you? If someone just read some of the things that you did last year, would some of these things fall under that category? In church, are you the type of person that try to find kind things to do for people? And is it noted? Is it noted? When people tell you a story, what would they say about you? Is it clear that you are a humble person, a loving person, a kind-hearted person? And what are some of the things that you do that you can see and mirror some of the things that David did, even in situations that you find yourself in? So just think about that as we go through this and as we read this. You know, what kind of personality should we have? These stories are not just put here for literary sake. I mean, it's something that we should understand and think about and say, hey, look, I can do the same thing. I can be the same way. And I can start experiencing the nature of God and who he is on a level that will cause my advertisement to shine and to show people that Jesus is the way. And it's one thing about David that we can clearly see through the writings about him. He had a lot of struggles and a lot of problems But my Lord, he did love the Lord. I mean, that's just one thing, just jumps off the pages about him. The very fact that he audibly and publicly cried out to him doing his sinful nature is just something that when you read those Psalms, kind of like bring tears to your eyes and bring you to your knees to pray to God in such a manner that if God would hear someone like that and attach David coming after his own heart, well, man, he surely can love the old sinner like me. I read certain Psalms, and remember, he was a musician too, and he sung these things to God. So publicly, people got to hear David's spiritual love for his father. Any comments?
When I read this, I think about a couple things with David. David first realized that he wasn't worthy. He wanted to know, why did God find favor in a lowly shepherd boy, right? And so as we think about our lives and where God has brought us from, and the mere fact that we are Christians, that we actually have God's promise. So think about the people that don't. And you say, what was it about me, Lord, that you led me to this place, right? And realizing what God has done for you. David realized early on, I'm not worthy, but what is it in me that God saw where he pursued me to this level? And he continued to find favor in me. And so I was able to do things that most people couldn't do. And because God blessed him, he found it necessary and wanted to bless somebody else, right? And so for us, when God blesses us with things, do we hold those blessings to ourselves, or do we really go out and try? When God blesses us, we bless someone else. That's the way it works. That's the cycle of God's goodness, if you're able to do that. So for David, there was a couple things, and the fact that Jonathan was his best friend, I think played a lot into it. And then you look at the parents, right? Jonathan's father, you look at the enemy there, right? And then you think, well, David and Jonathan were best friends, and this was the grandson of Mephibosheth. And so you look at that, and then you look at how God can take that situation that was so wrong, and there was so much, there wasn't a lot of love, right, on the king's part, and he can turn it all around. And so now you have his grandson sitting at David's table. So I think that story is full of so many things.
You know, vengeance and hatred comes from man, not from God. God didn't tell kings to do this. He didn't tell kings that was the norm. It's just that people can't get along. And you're absolutely right. When you look at Bible characters, men and women of the Bible, and you look at the pursuit of happiness, how God pursues people on the level that he do, and the long suffering that he has, and you just recently start saying that we don't want God to come now. Lord, come quickly. We don't want that because a lot of us are not ready. A lot of us are not ready. And God's long suffering are not for just sinners. It is for the church too. A lot of us are not ready in the church to get it right. Moses was not ready for God to do away with the world, not in the attitude that he had by leaving Egypt when his plan and design was to be there. So, when you look at, things like that, you should say in your own life, examining your own life, thank God that he did. I mean, just think about the life after waters of baptism and the life that you had before, and how God pursued you to that, and how God sees you now. God sees you in a way that you don't see yourself. And that's a glorious thing. And from then on, you have access to eternity with God. It's just the bottom line. And the beauty about that is, just like my chemistry teacher said to all of us when we walked in the room the very first day in September, she said, everybody has 100 here. Only thing you got to do is maintain. And I thought that was great. I said, wow, man, this is fantastic. And we worked hard. I ended up with an 80, but we worked hard to maintain that 100. But in her world, in the way she judged things, she said, I'm going to start out with everybody being the best. And if you have that standard in your life, you maintain it. And that's the way God is. God looks at us as sons and daughters of his, where we are the very best of mankind and creation. Only thing we got to do is endure, not mess that up. So if we can grab hold of that and stay focused on that and be fine with that, we can get into eternity, because God is not going to lower the bar. The standard is Jesus. And when we accept Christ and accept Christ as the Son of God and live the way God wants us to live through Christ, we have already met the standard that God has put out there. And the characteristics of that should show in our life, because we are happy now that we are part of the kingdom. So there should be some kingdom characteristics that each and every one of us should start displaying like Jesus, and kindness is definitely one of them. So think about it. Think about, the very fact that it wasn't hard and it wasn't easy. And I mean, you had to go find this kid. And this kid was in a land where people didn't want to be found. And David brought him back to royalty to sit and eat in the palace, in the king's house, was an honor. And my Lord, I know what people thought about this man. They no longer thought that anymore. Think about that. David cleaned him up and got him right. And I know he walked around with royal clothing on after that. And he was in a great house with a great king, a great man. And I know he was thankful. He was glad that somebody came and got him. He was fearful because he didn't know what was going to happen. He could have been an example. David could have went and got him just to say, I'm going to finalize this business of this previous king. And I'm going to take his family out right in front of everybody. So he was fearful. But instead of being killed, he was added to the king's table as if he was David's son. And that's a beautiful, beautiful story. Okay, let us continue to read here. Someone can take up on top of page 36. Let me just read that page.
The Mephibosheth will never forget that word. Will quickly spread through the countryside. King Saul and Prince Jonathan are dead. David is now king. At the house of Jonathan, this not only brought grief, but panic as well. In that day, it was customary for the incoming king to eliminate the family of the king before him. Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth, was probably oblivious to it all that had just occurred. His nurse burst into the room, grabbed him up, and headed for safety. However, in so doing, she dropped him, crushing his ankles and crippling him for life. Mephibosheth believed that there would never be a day that would so impact his life and so affect his future like that day. But he would soon discover that a day would come that would have a far greater impact in his life and on his future. The day he experienced God's kindness in David. David had just subdued his greatest enemy, the Philistines, Moabites, and Syrians. As he sat in his palace and reflected on his journey from a sheepfold to a throne room, no doubt he was taken by the wonder of God's kindness in his life. He began to look far away that he could demonstrate the grace of God to someone that was just as unworthy as he was. Mephibosheth, King Saul's crippled grandson, would become the recipient of David's act of kindness. And from this story, we can learn much about the gift of kindness, our kindness to others, and God's kindness to us.
I was watching this program on TV about millionaires who gain their wealth from chances, like lotteries, stocks, different things where you took a risk, you took a chance. And this one couple lived not too far away from this area that when they became millionaires, they went and bought. And the wife said, when they were looking at these $1 million homes, the wife said, I always wanted to live on this mountain. It was always something that I would drive at the foot of the mountain to the street and look up and say, man, it would be nice to live there. She said, I never thought in my lifetime that will come true. So when they looked at these 3 homes, they both had decided one thing they didn't want to do the rest of their life was be under construction. So it took a long time for them to decide which one of these houses they wanted. So the house that they picked was a house that she can look out of her bedroom window and see the tail end of the mountain and the hillside of this particular area where all these $1 million homes were. And so she said to the realtor, who owns that land right there, that mountain right there that's in the back of these rolling mountains? Who own that? And see, I don't know. He said, I'll find out. It's probably the state, but I'll find out. So he went and found out and told her about it. And she said to her husband, let's buy that. And the husband said, why? I mean, we agreed to purchase what we purchased, and we mutually agreed that this is where we're going to spend the rest of our life and die. She said, well, I want to own what I dreamed of all these years. And he said, okay. And they had the money to do it. So they purchased the mountain. So every day she got up, she would look out, and she would say the rest of her life, I own this and I own that. And that was her dream. She finally got an opportunity to get something that she dreamed of all her life as a young girl and a young woman. I mean, you talk about being in the field with sheep, shepherding, it can be dangerous. I mean, you gotta, this is your dad's livestock. You gotta protect these animals. You gotta make sure they don't get sick. You gotta make sure wolves don't come and take one. Dad's not gonna be happy. And then you look around, you the king of Israel. I mean, talk about hitting the lottery. I mean, out of all his brothers who were status-wise fit that kingship, God pursued him. A little old runny little boy who was out in the woods, so to speak, by himself, minding his own business. God said, that's the one that I want. Father didn't pay him no mind. Yeah, I got one more. And that's just the way he looked at David. And David was the one that was able to give God what God wanted. And Saul was just a big mistake. And God told Samuel about leadership coming from men. These are the type of leaders we're going to have. They're going to have faults, and they're not going to display any of these characteristics from time to time. Some of our presidents here in America are not going to be kind-hearted. They're not going to be loving. And Lord knows they're not going to humble themselves. So, you know, every time we select someone in leadership, we're taking a chance that these characteristics won't be these people. And we would have to suffer through that. So just, you know, think about how important it is to stay focused and look at some of the things that it doesn't cost you to do. And then look at some of the sacrifices that you will make in doing acts of kindness. Your time, your money. Think about it. All because of you, a person will eat tomorrow. Or all because of you, 10 years from now, someone will have a future. All because of you, the 5 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour once a week that you spend at the boys club or girls club or on the internet talking with someone. 10 years from now, that person is going to say, if it wasn't for that person right there, we hear those stories all the time, I wouldn't be where I'm at, either as a coach or a teacher or a Bible school teacher or the guy next door or the lady next door. If it wasn't for that lady that used to give us breakfast every morning or sandwiches and we never ate, well, they had one meal a day. If it wasn't for that lady, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So think about acts of kindness that, yes, sometimes it may cost you your time, it may cost you your money, but sometimes it don't. Sometimes what you give someone in the act of kindness, they would never get. And think about it, he would have never got this. And he was on the hit list if anybody else took over. So the very fact that David took over as king saved his life. Because you don't want anyone to rise up as a coup against your kingship. You don't want that. So you come in and you just wipe everything clean. You find people, you kill them and get rid of them, and then you start new. So just think about the environment in which these people lived and how grateful he was and what David decided to do and continued to do as long as he lived. All right, David's kindness came as a result of his experience with God. Those who are forgiven much generally love much. If my past life was the worst thing in the world, I have a tendency to love God a whole lot more. Because I thank him for pulling me out of hell's fire. Some of us are just okay with God. Had a very good upbringing, 2 loving parents, didn't need for anything. Mom and dad gave us everything we needed and wanted. We believed in Christ. Some of us grew up in a Christian home, made that transition, 10, 12, 13 years old, got baptized, took their faith on their own and believed that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, and just gradually moved into the kingdom that way. Some of us, God pulled us out of a hard place, a hard time, and we thank him for it. Some of us can honestly say, if it wasn't for Jesus, I wouldn't be living today, based on my lifestyle and the people that I hung around. So those who were forgiven much, love much. And some of us have checks and minuses to our life. Some of us do. And if you listen to people and hear people when they're talking, well, we don't testify here. Very seldom do we tell people about our past, primarily because we don't want people to judge us. But there are some of us here that came from a mighty long way and don't want to go back. Amen? You want to go back to that. Got to figure that. That's not life for me. I have people all the time. That's not the life for me. I found Jesus. I'm going to stick with him. He's the best thing in the world. And I'm not going to do anything to hinder this. At this point, David was living a fairy tale life. He had gone from shepherd to soldier to sovereign king. This caused David to reflect and ask, who am I, O sovereign Lord? And what is my family that you have brought me this far? 2 Samuel 7:18. The time of self-reflection was common with David, as we can see him in Psalms 8, when after reflection of God's splendor, he asks, what is man that you are mindful of him? It is easy to focus on the negative. The struggles we face always seem to be in the forefront of our thoughts. The Apostle Paul had many reasons to be negative when he wrote the Philippian brethren. After all, he was in prison, but he knew that contentment and generosity were a result of thinking the right things. Philippians 4:8. When we consider the positive things God has done in our lives, it should translate into our kindness to others. If you ever, maybe it's been a while since you read Psalms 8, tonight before you go to bed, read it and reflect on it. That God's primary purpose in waking you up and me up this morning was to have a relationship. There's some people that we know and love dearly that don't want to have a relationship with us. But God woke us up this morning And it's our prayer that he'll wake us up tomorrow morning. Unless tonight is the night that he's going to call us home, and that's going to be greater than living here. But if he wake us up tomorrow morning, he's going to have the same attitude toward us because he don't sleep. He doesn't slumber. So he's going to have the same attitude toward us tomorrow on that cycle that he can't wait until we get up to have a relationship with us during the day. And if that doesn't give you goosebumps and that doesn't motivate you to being a better person, that doesn't motivate you into showing an act of kindness, just know he didn't have to do that and don't have to do that. You can spend, and I can spend the first 4 hours in bed tomorrow in pain when we can't move. Think about that. So don't take God's blessings for granted. And tomorrow, if he allows us to be blessed again with the act of consciousness, thank God for that. You know, when your feet hit the floor, thank God for that. I tell you all the time, when you make your way to the bathroom, give God a little bit of glory and a little bit of time and thank him for what he just did. It wasn't an alarm clock. It wasn't a noise. It wasn't restlessness. It was God who decided that you and I was going to have another day. And just look in the mirror and look at the person and just thank him. Thank him. Say, God, I thank you for me. Just look at yourself and thank God. And you would have a better day if you start putting him as sovereign in your life and putting him where he needs to be and letting him know that you respect the fact that he is there and he belongs there. And you will start having a greater time with God. Most of the struggles that we face because God is absent from our day. Think about that. When you stop it and you reel in your day, and from that moment after that you include God, God just simply said what he was waiting for. So when you're going through your day and you're going through your morning is tough, your afternoon probably going to follow that. Some of us have a day that is so stressful we can't wait to get out of work. Well, you have control over that. You can stop that. You can put your mind somewhere else where these things don't function. I tell you, get up. Get up, walk away, and see the outcome before it happens. Be spiritually smart enough to see, I've been down this road before. I know what this person is going to say. I know what's going to happen. It's like you seeing someone argue or something in the hallway is where you're walking to. You know, either you're going to go over there and be a peacemaker or you're going to walk by them with haste. You know what I'm saying? You're going to walk by them with haste. So just think about that. Think about some of the things that David was thinking about. And he was living a fairy tale life. I mean, he can't get no better than being king. Imagine President Trump or President Obama. Wherever they go, they don't have to pay for anything. Think about that. When I was driving Jason Robart, the actor, around, he left his wallet home. We halfway down 95. He kept checking back pocket. I said, what's wrong? He said, Ellis, I left my wallet home. I said, all right, turn around, I'll go get it. He said, nah. He said, I don't like to be late. He got this thing about he had to be his whole life in acting. When he became an actor, a famous actor at 40, that's when he made his first million. He have to be at the job an hour before he's supposed to be there. So that was a lot of pressure on me. But anyway, he said, do you have any money? I said, yeah, but I don't have your kind of money. So he started laughing. He said, now we be fine. So we went to a place that he favored. It was a bagel place, the Upper East Side. So I parked the car, got out, we walked in. He said, you want anything? I said, no. I said, but I'll get you whatever you want. And everybody started looking at me. Everybody got rushed and everything. And kid came up to me, oh, that's Mr. Robot, as if I didn't know that. That's Mr. Robot. I said, yeah, that is. We get a lot of that. And he ordered his stuff, and he said, Ellis. And the guy said, no, it's on us. And everything. So the whole entire day was like that. He paid for, I didn't pay for nothing. He didn't have no money. I didn't pay for nothing. So the whole entire day was like that because of who he was. And so I had to ask him, why was he so popular? Because I'm an actor. It's because I give. I said, you give what? He said, I give to the Actors Guild. He said, I give to the communities here. He said, I drove taxi cab for 25 years. And wherever we went, everyone knew him. And I had fell asleep one night when I took him out to dinner to meet this director and producer that wanted him to do a movie for him. It was pouring rain, and I just got so tired I fell asleep. And this police officer knocked at the window. Said, don't you know you in a no parking zone? Guy scared me to death. I got myself together. He said, who are you waiting for outside this restaurant? I said, Jason Robar. He said, go back to sleep. I said, you know him? He said, do I know him? He's the reason why I'm a police officer. He said he gave my father money for me to go to school. His name was Jimmy O'Connor. So when this robot got in the car, Officer O'Connor, see, I know his dad. I said, oh, wow. He said, Ellis, I did a lot of things, a lot of nice things for people. And I think that's why I'm more popular than I am an actor. He said, because every time I was given something, I made sure I gave it away. And it was a beautiful thing about it. He started reading the Bible. We had conflicts with his wife because she was Catholic, but he would go home and tell her certain things that he would ask me. And I told him he had to stop doing that. I said, because that's going to cause her not to like me. He said, no, she's not that way. I said, yeah, she going to be. I said, because everything you tell her, she going to go tell the priest, and then the priest going to eventually tell her, don't talk to me. And that's exactly what happened. So he said, I'm not going to the rail anymore. I said, you're not going to the rail anymore because of me, and now she's not going to like me. But it all turned out well for the most part. But he made sure he gave back. And his reputation preceded him around the city, because no matter where I went, he didn't have to pay. And he had a history of doing stuff for other people who felt they owed him for the life-changing things in their life. And I had it made. I didn't get any more tickets, because I got a ticket sitting outside the theater one time. But when people found out that I was his driver, I got away with anything I wanted. I didn't have to park in garages no more, stay around, walk around, do what I want to do. All because in that midsection of Manhattan, he was well known. So let's think about these things and think about kindness don't cost us anything. God is God, and we should thank God for that. And the very fact that he has blessed us, we should be more than willing to bless other people. Ellis?
We didn't get there yet, but this kind of ties in. Question 4 is asking, why should Christians be the kindest people on earth? But this section here that we just read, David's kindness came as a result of his experience with God. Like when you're around someone a lot in relationship wise, you usually start using the slang they use or terminology they use. You may start liking the same food they like. We have to understand, like, this whole section is talking about David's understanding and outshow of kindness came from his relationship with God. So Matthew 7:16, Jesus is preaching this Sermon on the Mount. He already talked about the Beatitudes. And then in this section here, he's talking about true and false prophets. And in 16, it says, by their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them. This is why, to me, the biggest thing about being a Christian is your personality. Like, if you're a rude person, but you baptize 10 people, what does that mean to me? Or if you baptize 10 people, but your family not saved. Like, I think we look at Christianity too complicated. First of all, what kind of person are you? Since 2017 to now 2018, have you gotten better in any aspect of your personality? Not how many Bible studies you've had, how many scriptures you can quote, how often you come to church, how much you give in the collect. Let's just talk about you, the person that you are. have we gotten any better in the time that we've been a Christian? Right? Year to year. Don't tell me, well, 20 years ago, I used to stab people. I don't stab people. Like, what about just last year to this year? Because in a relationship, after a while, people joke and say, oh, y'all start to look alike. That's how close two people become. So to me, when I look at what God has done for David, because of that relationship is how he knows how to show acts of kindness. Therefore, when I look at us, my question is personality-wise. In our one-on-one relationship with God, we always look at fruit numerically. I'm encouraging us this year, look at fruit for who you are. If multiple people in your lifespan have mentioned a negative thing about you, how about try working on being better at that? Don't tell me anything about any other aspect until you master that, because Jesus was saying you can overcome this world because he did. So I feel like a lot of us check out in being a better person and start checking in boxes of things that we're doing. David was a better person. Like, that's why the things he was doing was natural for him, because he already was a better person than a lot of these other people around him. But God made him a better person. That's why people in the world should see us as better people. So if you don't feel like that you're not becoming a better person, you should evaluate your relationship with God. But I really encourage us to stay in that space of being a better person. Like, the Christians who come all the time love talking about the things they're doing. But what about who you are as a person? Because I hear a lot of Christians will say stuff like, well, this is me, or accept me for who I am, or all those things to me are cop-outs. Like, this is a game of being a better person. Christianity is about being a better person. So if you say, oh, I'm not a loving person, I don't know what to tell you about being a Christian, because faith, hope, love, all three, but the greatest is love. So if we start saying, well, I'm not a patient person, or I don't like people, or I don't like being around people, or like any of those things don't mesh with our Bible. So like, in terms of being better, David had a very long one-on-one with God that turned him into these acts of kindness naturally. We have to think about that for ourselves. How am I being better? If I started keeping a journal of every day of my life, would I see any improvement for myself? Not the things that I'm doing, but the things that come natural to me, meaning no one have to remind me of my best friend's son, because that's my best friend's son. Even God shouldn't have to remind me of my best friend's son. It's natural that I say, oh, I'm going to look out for those that looked out for me. Too often people become stuff or do stuff, or you do something for them and they forget whatever, like, oh, I just woke up like this one day. So to me, for us that are Christians and those of us who aren't, that is the game here. Like, if you're not looking to be a better person, you should not be a Christian. You should either don't get baptized or stop coming to church, because the whole concept of Christianity is you be better first. Because if you take the plank out of your own eye, that's evangelism in and of itself, because you will be light in the darkness. But if you are dark, meaning you're a bad person, but you quote the right scriptures, that is not evangelism. I challenge anyone in this whole earth. Like, too often we'll sit up. This is why I say about social network. We'll sit up arguing people online spiritual things. To me, that's not evangelism. I don't think Paul would be on Facebook arguing with people over scripture, because the Bible says when you look at two people arguing from a distance and one is a fool, can I tell which one is the fool? No, right? So therefore, the love is how you win people over. When somebody slaps you in the face and you're kind, that's more powerful than quoting to someone you need to be baptized, because they're going to be like, I never met anyone in this world that would become king and go back to the grandson of who tried to kill you and look out for them. That showed so much that's what motivated people to us and our personality Are we striving to grab the traits of God in Christ and apply it to our lives? Or are we more concerned with the things we're doing? Because the doing should match the heart. Both the faith and works got to match. As a brethren globally, we have the do's and don'ts down pat, but we lack the application, the wisdom, meaning we have the knowledge. We know what the book says, but we don't apply it well to our own lives. And people who are falling away, lost or weak, they will be more convinced when they see you being a better person, because they would say, I don't know any other team that don't swear. That alone, by our teens going to school not swearing, is evangelism, because their classmates will say, I don't know any other kid except JL that don't swear in my life. I don't know one other person in my entire life except JL that don't swear. That speaks volumes. So when we change who we are, on the next page, it talks about, and I'll end with this, we are God's primary instrument and express his love for the world. Are they getting the message? Take that question deeper. Is your family getting the message? Is the church getting the message? Are those you disagree with getting the message? Meaning, try to show the people who are closest to you your change. If you have salvation at your grasp, work on your family. If you have salvation at your grasp, work on your friend. Like, show people that know you a different side of you, where someone can say, even last month, Ellis was rude to me. And I can see in 2, 3, 4 Sundays, he's making a conscious effort to stop being rude to me. That speaks more volume than you going over having a Bible study, because they don't know you. But if they see me change the way I've been behaving towards them, they will be pierced at the heart and say, wow, I've never seen someone change like that. So to me, that's what I see the most from this highlighting of David, is he only learned these things from an intimate relationship with God, but he allowed God to change him. He didn't try to change God. And to me, that's the biggest motivation I would say for us as a new year is, you wrote personality traits of God. Are you trying to act like God in your personality, not in coming to church all the time? And it's difficult to do that.
All right, I want to end with just 4 things, and we all can join in and chime in on this. What are some things about you that you have seen God change and improve? Some things about you, because if you're not a people person, I can guarantee you, from my own personal experience, God's gonna put you around a lot of people. If you're uncontrollable. You can't control your temper. You don't have patience with people. God is gonna put you in situations where you have to start learning how to control yourself. I can tell you that by experiences. Okay, so what are some things that you have seen in your life that God has changed and improved? Because you're a mess. I'm a mess. But God, there should be some things about this and him that we can see in us. Now, we still got construction signs and the color is orange around us, so we're still under construction. I understand that. But what are some things that you can honestly say that God has changed and he has improved? There's got to be something.
One thing I'll say is this for me, is God taught me to be mindful of other people.
Okay, so
because in the Bible, I see that. Meaning, what does that mean? Selfishness, right? Like if you're out and it's a group setting, you're noticing if someone is in need, right? So you may say, oh, I didn't even see you there. So everything in the Bible to me helped me get to the point where when I leave the house, think of someone else instead of Ellis. So that's one of the biggest things that I was.
All right, Karen.
Constant gratitude.
Constant what?
Gratitude. Like I'm constantly reminding myself that I need to be grateful. And with the gratitude comes the humility. And with that, it pushes me to be kinder, to be more honorable, to be more loving, all of that.
Okay, Crystal.
For
For me, more peacemaking and less argumentative.
Argumentative?
Argumentative, so less argument, more peace.
Okay. You have improved on that, huh? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Who else had Donna? Donna?
Seeing, God has opened my eyes to see the needs of other people and to respond to them. Because sometimes, even, when you look at people and you're trying to figure out, is it a need or is it just something that they want or they don't want to do? But just being able to identify people that have a need, but not only that there is a need, but responding to the need. Because I think so often we walk by people or things and we're like, oh, there's a need, but we don't want to respond to it. And I think that's the biggest thing, because when you respond to the need, that will cost you, whether it's monetary or whether it's your time.
Okay. All right, Kumar.
Dedicated. Like, for especially us as Christians, we have to be dedicated to our service. And if we can't show dedication to Him, I was in the Bible that He won't do it to you. He's not going to do for those who do. Children, like we talked about last night, it's like it's a concept. That means you know exactly what you need to do as a child of God, so you show dedication.
Okay.
I have one.
Oh, so I just want to add one more. So forgiveness, and that's a big one, right? Because
I was gonna say that one.
yeah, so right, so we look at, because that's a game changer. It really is a game changer, and sometimes it takes a long time to get to a certain place in forgiveness. But I could say that things that I will overlook and have forgiven people for, that if I wasn't a Christian, it would be like the one to me. Like it would be like whatever, and I would just keep it moving. So that part, and that's a constant thing, because things are happening in my life all the time where there is a need for forgiveness, and I'm always reminded about the forgiveness that God offers to me, and that I have to be mindful of that, because if I don't forgive others, He's not going to forgive me. So that was big for me, because I could hold a grudge for a long time.
Okay.
That was like, it's nothing.
Amen.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, yes, Lord. We think.
I mean, there was a time when I could.
Yeah, they don't know what I know, baby. Now check it out. Look at this. And then look at this. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. He has the power to change and improve lives if we allow Him to do so. And those of us who put these up here, God use you more than those of us who fight Him. Because it's advertisement. You're like a tool in a mechanic's toolbox that is worn out, because that's the one he grabbed all the time when you got to do tough job. So just like Paul told Timothy, in a great house, there's silver and gold, wood and clay. Some Christians are going to get this and some not. But those who get this are going to be able to move on and be used by God because they have shown improvement. Teachers spend a lot of time with students who what? Get it. Students who don't, what do teachers let them be? Over in the corner. And they attract other students. All right, so think about it. We'll stop there and we'll start next week on bottom parts there, page 30.